During the brutal clashes of the late 11th century, European crusaders encountered a terrifying new reality on the battlefield. Their heavy broadswords, forged from the finest iron of the West, were repeatedly shattered by the defenders of the Levant. The Islamic warriors wielded weapons of impossible elegance, their blades marked by mesmerizing, swirling patterns reminiscent of flowing water or rippling silk. These swords could reportedly cleave through solid rock and shatter enemy shields, yet possessed enough miraculous flexibility to bend at a 90-degree angle and spring back perfectly true. Legends claimed they could slice a falling silk scarf in mid-air without the wielder applying any force. This was Damascus Steel, a metallurgical marvel that defied the boundaries of medieval engineering. It was not merely a weapon, but an ancient super blade that would haunt the European imagination and spark a centuries-long quest for its secret. The foundation of this legendary sharpness and durability lay in a highly specific, high-carbon alloy known as Wootz steel. Originating not in the Middle East, but deep within the Indian subcontinent, Wootz was produced through a crucible steel process that was conceptually centuries ahead of its time. Ancient Indian metallurgists gathered black magnetite ore, sealing it inside airtight clay crucibles alongside specific carbon-rich organic materials like wood and leaves. These crucibles were then fired in specialized furnaces, strategically positioned to harness the fierce monsoon winds for intense, continuous heat. The resulting ingots were dense, dark, and seemingly unremarkable lumps of metal. Yet, when transported along arduous ancient silk and spice routes to the master smiths of Damascus, these unassuming blocks were destined for a radical transformation. Through a meticulously controlled, repetitive cycle of precise heating, hammering, and folding, the raw Wootz was coaxed into a blade of unparalleled lethality. For generations, this ancient metallurgy reigned supreme, vastly outclassing everything produced during the European Middle Ages and the subsequent Renaissance. But then, an inexplicable silence fell over the roaring forges of the Middle East. By the dawn of the 18th century, the production of authentic Damascus blades abruptly and mysteriously ceased. The master smiths died out, leaving absolutely no written records, no instructional manuals, and no chemical blueprints. The recipe was entirely lost to time. For the next 300 years, the greatest minds of the Industrial Revolution, including the pioneering chemist Michael Faraday, desperately attempted to reverse engineer the legendary steel. They melted down priceless antique blades, rigorously analyzed the chemical compositions, and experimented with countless alloy variations. Every single attempt to recreate the true, original watermark and its accompanying extraordinary physical properties ended in frustrating failure. The breakthrough in decoding this lost art did not come from a traditional blacksmith's anvil, but from the hyper-focused lens of an electron microscope in the early 21st century. In 2006, a team of researchers led by crystallographer Peter Poffler at the Technical University of Dresden subjected fragments of a genuine 17th-century Damascus sword to high-resolution X-ray diffraction. The results were nothing short of staggering, upending decades of metallurgical assumptions. Hidden deep within the steel matrix were microscopic structures known as carbon nanotubes. These are incredibly complex, cylindrical molecules made entirely of carbon, renowned in modern physics for being one of the strongest and stiffest materials known to humanity. Encased within these carbon nanotubes were cementite nanowires, ultra-hard strands of iron carbide. The ancient smiths had, entirely unwittingly, mastered a crude but highly effective form of nanotechnology. The presence of these astonishing nanostructures perfectly explained the enduring paradox of the superblades. The flexible carbon nanotubes provided the sword with its immense, spring-like resilience, while the rigid cementite nanowires delivered the devastating, microscopic serrations along the cutting edge. But how did medieval artisans manipulate matter at the atomic level without modern scientific instruments? The answer lay not in deliberate molecular engineering, but in a miraculous, highly localized geological lottery. The specific Indian iron ores used to create the original Wootz steel were naturally contaminated with highly specific trace impurities. Elements like vanadium, molybdenum, and chromium were present in the Earth in just the right microscopic quantities. During the complex thermal cycling of the forging process, these critical trace elements acted as chemical catalysts, forcing the carbon atoms to align into the crystalline tubes that gave the steel its legendary power. This profound revelation shifted the core of the mystery from the blazing forge back to the silent earth itself. The legendary strength of the blades was fundamentally tethered to the unique, unrepeatable chemistry of a few specific mines scattered across southern India. As long as the raw Wootz ingots contained these exact trace elements, the master smiths of Damascus could work their apparent magic. But this strict geographic dependency was also the hidden seed of the technology's ultimate destruction. The ancient supply chain was incredibly fragile, stretching across thousands of miles of hostile territory, entirely reliant on a precarious, slow-moving network of merchants, sailors, and desert caravaneers. The brilliance of the blades was balanced on a knife's edge of global logistics. Sometime in the 17th century, the complex geopolitical landscape of the world began to aggressively fracture and reshape itself. The rapid rise of the British East India Company, coupled with the shifting volatile borders of local empires, severely disrupted the traditional, centuries-old trade routes. Simultaneously, a quieter, more devastating event occurred. The specific ore veins in India that contained the crucial vanadium and molybdenum began to run dry. The local miners, completely unaware of the microscopic alchemy they were facilitating for smiths thousands of miles away, simply moved their operations to other, more abundant iron deposits nearby. The new Wootz ingots looked perfectly identical to the old ones. They weighed the same in the hand, they felt the same to the touch, but chemically, on an atomic level, they were barren. When this new, chemically altered Wootz finally reached the Middle East, the master smiths applied their traditional, time-honored techniques with exact precision. They heated the steel to the precise color of a rising sun, quenched it in the prescribed manner using specific fluids, and polished the surface just as their fathers and grandfathers had taught them. But the magic was inexplicably gone. The hypnotic, watery patterns failed to emerge on the metal surface. The resulting blades were fatally brittle or disastrously soft, shattering upon impact. Because the transmission of this highly specialized knowledge was an entirely oral tradition, guarded with intense paranoia and secrecy by a few elite families, there was no foundational scientific understanding of metallurgy to fall back on. The artisans knew the exact process, but they possessed absolutely no concept of the underlying chemistry. The sudden disappearance of the superblades serves as a chilling, historical testament to the extreme fragility of specialized knowledge. The master smiths could not adapt their techniques because they did not know they were relying on invisible trace impurities in the first place. They likely blamed their own failing skills, variations in their furnace fires, or the disfavor of the gods, entirely unaware that the earth itself had quietly changed the fundamental recipe. Within a single generation, a technological marvel that had dominated battlefields for centuries vanished into thin air, leaving behind only rumors and relics. The 18th century marked the definitive, tragic end of an era, transforming a living, breathing, evolving craft into a static museum curiosity. This profound historical amnesia actively challenges our modern, deeply ingrained assumption that technological progress is a linear, unstoppable, and ever-upward force. We tend to comfortably believe that once a major scientific discovery is made, it becomes a permanent, irrevocable fixture of human capability. Yet, the lingering ghost of Damascus Steel proves unequivocally that profound innovations can be entirely erased by a simple disruption in a supply chain or a single break in the fragile chain of oral transmission. It forces a rigorous reevaluation of ancient metallurgical prowess, heavily suggesting that our ancestors achieved staggering feats of engineering that we are only now beginning to comprehend, let alone successfully replicate. Even today, armed with the precise knowledge of carbon nanotubes and the exact chemical composition of the original surviving blades, modern science still struggles to perfectly duplicate the ancient forging process. We can easily synthesize the base materials in highly controlled, pristine laboratory environments, but recreating the exact thermal cycling, the intuitive, rhythmic hammer blows, and the precise quenching methods of the medieval smiths remains an incredibly elusive goal. The ancient artisans possessed a tactile, sensory genius, an innate understanding of the metal's behavior that cannot be entirely captured by X-ray diffraction or electron microscopy. Their laboratories were the roaring, chaotic forges, and their primary analytical instruments were their highly trained eyes and calloused hands. The enduring story of these ancient super blades is a profound reminder of the intricate, invisible web that tightly connects natural resources, human ingenuity, and the delicate transmission of knowledge. It starkly highlights the devastating long-term consequences of lost craft traditions on the broader trajectory of human innovation. When the last master smith died, taking the unspoken secret of the thermal cycles to his grave, humanity permanently lost a vital piece of its technological heritage. The magnificent blades that survive today are not just antique weapons, they are encrypted hard drives of ancient data, holding the physical memory of a time when human hands routinely coaxed miracles from stone and fire. Decoding the secrets of Damascus Steel ultimately reveals a fascinating, tragic paradox of civilization. The very secrecy that fiercely protected the craft, ensuring a monopoly and elevating the smiths to legendary status, was the exact mechanism of their complete downfall. By vehemently refusing to democratize their knowledge or record their methods, they unknowingly ensured its total extinction the very moment the environmental and geopolitical variables shifted. The untold secret of the super blade is not just a chemical recipe of iron, carbon, and vanadium. It is a stark, enduring cautionary tale about the impermanence of mastery and the vulnerability of isolated genius. The lost art remains a brilliant beacon of ancient capability, a gleaming testament to the extraordinary heights of human achievement reached long before the dawn of the industrial age. As scientists and historians continue to probe the atomic structure of these legendary swords, we are not merely looking at sharpened metal. We are looking directly at a forgotten, glorious chapter of human potential. It represents a fleeting, perfect moment when the hidden elements of the earth and the burning fire of human ambition perfectly aligned to create something truly indestructible, only to let it quietly slip through the unforgiving fingers of history.